Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Today, our portion is called Vayigash, and he approached. The concept of Mashiach, or Messiah, was developed by our sages over a period of time. And in Parashat Vayigash, the two main characters, Joseph and Judah, point to two types of Messiah. Mashiach ben Joseph, the suffering Messiah, and Mashiach ben David, the conquering Messiah. They were not explicitly written about in the scriptures, but they emerged around 300 BC in between the Tanakh and the Messianic writings during the age of the apocryphal writings. They say a hero would appear, most likely as a king or a priest from the tribes of Judah or Joseph. Now, in this portion, it looks like Joseph is the conquering Messiah, while Judah is a suffering servant who bows before Joseph, calling him my Lord. But in the future, the suffering servant, Yeshua, would be referred to as that, the suffering Messiah. And from David, we'll have a conquering Messiah that will come from the line of Judah. There's a branch of Judaism today that considers Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson to be the Messiah, although not all of them do, but many of them do. Throughout the scriptures, many men have been seen as messiahs or saviors, but they have never been put in the place of God. Noah saved humanity from the flood, but no one has ever considered him God. Others have healed the sick and even raised the dead, like Elijah, yet he was not considered God. The word Mashiach means anointed. They would use oil to anoint for a specific purpose. They had a role. Many ceremonial anointments took place, including at the temple, at the tent of meeting, and later in the temple, and all their instruments of worship were anointed. Priests and kings were anointed, the word Mashiach, for their roles, but none were considered Yud-He Vav-He, the Creator God. Here the stage is set for the understanding that we have today about these two men. Joseph was not recognized by his brothers for several reasons. He was clean-shaven, unlike the Hebrews. He wore the garments of a foreigner. He spoke a foreign language, even using an interpreter to speak to his brothers. Even his name was changed from Joseph to Zaphnat Paneach. Pharaoh was considered a god to the Egyptians. So Joseph was looked upon as the Son of God. The idea of Jesus being the Son of God didn't begin with the Greeks or the Romans. It began here. Although Joseph was a Hebrew, the Gentile world bowed down to him, just as they bowed down today before Jesus, also a Hebrew. Despite living in a totally foreign environment, Joseph never converted to the religion of Egypt. On the contrary, his loyalty to the God of his fathers remained intact. In fact, we still pray every Shabbat that our sons would be like his sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Yeshua's sermons always referred to his people. Yeshua's sermon always referred his people back to the written Torah. And we can be grateful to whoever wrote down his words, as well as those of his Talmidim, his students, so that we could get a glimpse of his life. But can we today trust the veracity of words written years after their deaths by people who could neither understand the Torah and the Hebrew culture, or who perhaps had another agenda? Even Rav Shaul, known today as Paul, he was a student of Gamaliel and Rabbi Yeshua. he would never have strayed from the Torah, as he has been so unjustly accused of doing. He would never have created a new religion with another God. And one day, justice will come for Rav Shaul, whose name was also changed to Paul by foreigners. You know, our own Rabbi Percy, his name was changed when he lived in a foreign land. All of us who are born Jews have a name from the land that we're living in, but we also have a Hebrew name, or in some cases, a Yiddish name. Rabbi Percy's name was Netanel. He taught us a rule of thumb for understanding any later writings, any writings after the Torah. He would say, whenever their words went against the Torah, we can understand, we can surmise that they had been changed over time. Now, these two giants, Joseph and Judah, were leaders in their own right. Judah demonstrated that he was responsible as a leader despite his many mistakes. The Torah teaches us that our biblical heroes were human, and they could commit mistakes. They could commit sin. Yet we see that once they had a change of heart, the Creator would call upon them to fulfill their special role, as he does with us today. Although they were not all equal in power and authority by human understanding, they were equal in the sight of God. Joseph had not yet revealed himself to his brothers and was quite harsh in his treatment of them because of what they had done to him. He was testing them to see if they had changed. Although 22 years had passed, and he was now the most powerful man in Egypt next to Pharaoh, he still would have felt the pain of their betrayal. He said that he would keep Benjamin as his slave, but Judah had promised his father Jacob that he would be responsible for Benjamin at any cost, and offered his own life in place of Benjamin. Now this helped change Joseph's mind, allowing him to let go of his desire for revenge and heal the pain of the past. Joseph saw that his brothers were united and repentant. And this message is a projection of what will happen in the future. Israel can only take its place as a leader of all the nations under God when all our people finally recognize their wrongdoings, when they unite and return due to teshuvah to the Creator, not to religion, to the Creator God. In the Haftarah portion, in Ezekiel 37, it speaks of these two branches, these two sticks, Joseph and Judah. Joseph through his son Ephraim. They would unite one day. Such a beautiful Haftarah portion. When and how did Joseph finally get recognized? He knew who his brothers were, but they didn't know him. Joseph finally revealed himself to them after he had tested them and saw their change of heart. Joseph himself had to be tested and humbled, or he would never have been able to fulfill his role. He cried out to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph, whom you sold into slavery. And then he told them, don't worry, for what you meant for evil, God has used for good to save your lives. He understood in that moment what the Creator had done with him. We're comparing Joseph with Judah, but also Joseph with Yeshua. So why is this comparison of Joseph and Yeshua so meaningful? Joseph was a top-ranking official next to Pharaoh alone, and he was placed in a position to save lives. Yeshua's role was to bring our people back to the Torah of Moses, the written Torah, which is a book of life-saving principles, in order for them to fulfill their role of being Or Goyim, light to the nations. Our Rabbi Netanel believed that we are nearing the day when Israel would lead all the nations to the God of our fathers, as it says in Zechariah 8:23. Thus says Adonai Tzevaot, the God of the armies, in those days 10 people from the nations of every tongue will take hold of one Jew by the corner of his cloak and say, let us go with you, because we have heard that God is with you. Let's not continue the myth that there is a separate God for them and us. Being Jewish or being part of Israel has nothing to do with bloodline. It has to do with having a genuine relationship with the God of Israel, for both Jew and Gentile. This is depicted in the lives of Joshua and Caleb, the only two men from that first generation of slaves who left Egypt for the Promised Land. Joshua was an Israelite, and Caleb was a Kenizzite, a Gentile, the stranger among us. What a beautiful message for the world. If we compare our Messiah Yeshua with Jesus Christ, or as some say, Jesus of the Christ, it's obvious that they are not the same. Rabbi Yeshua is a historical figure, while Christ is a theological construct originating in ancient Rome. How can the descendants of Judah recognize Jesus Christ as their brother when he doesn't speak their language? He was dressed in foreign garb, foreign clothes, and is worshipped as a god. Yehudim, Jews, cling to the Shema. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. There's only one God for Jew and Gentile. This is our contention and the reason we cannot worship him as God. Yeshua ben Yosef began his service solely to Israel. He said that he didn't come for the Gentiles. He came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. His struggle was not with the general populace of Israel. In fact, they flocked to him by the thousands to hear his teachings. His problem was with some of the Pharisees, not all. Remember, Nicodemus was a Pharisee. His problem was with those who imposed such heavy burdens upon their people that they themselves weren't willing to carry, and they sided with the wealthy and the powerful element of Rome. We can compare them with some factions today that side with the so-called Palestinians against the state and the people of Israel. Many are grateful to have the U.S. president who is standing with Israel when so many other nations are condemning and betraying us, accusing Israel of being an apartheid, racist, and terrorist nation, when the opposite is true. On the other hand, sadly, like at the time they called for their first king, like the time they called for their first king, Saul, they wanted a king. They weren't happy to have God as their king. But today, the people of Israel still choose to be like the other nations. And today, they have allowed the promised land, we have allowed the promised land to become polluted with every ideology from super religiosity to super atheism and everything in between. We have lost our compass because we no longer allow God's Torah to lead the way. We have replaced it with man's rules and regulations. We have forgotten our God. and our purpose to be Or L'Goyim. Why is it important for Yeshua to be part of our heritage along with our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses? Judah approached Joseph. Joseph, second only to Pharaoh, the god of Egypt, was considered the son of God. It wasn't until Joseph approached his brothers in an intimate way that they understood who he was. You know what this brought to my mind? I thought of Moses approaching the burning bush. He was drawn to its light, and after that, his calling was revealed. Many of us, Jews and Gentiles, have been drawn to the light through the persona of Jesus. And we wonder why, if he's considered a false god. Just as the burning bush was not God, Jesus was not God. He was like Joseph, unrecognizable to his Hebrew brothers. But the Hebrew Yeshua, descended from the line of Judah, had the light of God burning in him, as it does in all of us who are drawn to the light. You know, when I was immersed in the New Age, we were led to believe that we were the light and that our responsibility was to spread our light to heal the world. What a heavy burden that was. When I first read the book of John, Yochanan, that burden was lifted off my shoulders. John 1 says, "A man came sent by God. His name was John or Yochanan. He came to bear witness to the light, so that everyone might believe through him. He was not the light. The Torah was the true light that gives light to everyone." You know, Rabbi Yeshua told us in Matthew 5:15, "Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a barrel or a basket, but they put it on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house." Perhaps that's why those of us who have a relationship with God are drawn to Yeshua's light. His words expanded and explained the Torah. In Matthew 5:16-18, Yeshua said, "In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works, your good deeds, and glorify your Father in heaven." He didn't say glorify me, glorify our Father in heaven. And he continued, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them. I came to fulfill them. For I tell you truly, until heaven and earth pass away, not a single yud, not a vowel will disappear from the Torah until everything is accomplished." What did he mean when he said he would fulfill them? He was saying that he would show us that he was the living example, that he was an example of how to live the Torah. And that's what we need to do. That's what we are in the process of doing, learning to live the principles of the Torah. Living the Torah caused him to display that light. It does the same for all of us who are his students, his Talmidim. And now Judah. In the future, the Lion of Judah will rise, and Israel, along with the pharaohs of the world, all of them, will be drawn to the light. They will see the light, and they will come to know the true God, the King, the one and only King and Creator of the universe, Yud-He Vav-He. Shabbat Shalom.